Hello, I want to talk to you right now about self-awareness. It sounds like a random topic to pluck out of the air, but actually, on my commutes up and down to work, so I do a mixture of things: listen to the radio, listen to podcasts, and then on the sort of train portion of my commute, I will consume a little bit of social media, and I don't consume a lot of social media. I don't go on Facebook much. I sort of check in from time to time. Didn't really like the effect, um, particularly that Facebook was having on my mindset. Twitter. Um, I think a lot of social media is down to curation. You know how you actually curate your followers and or the people that you follow as well. So obviously people on Facebook tend to be people that I've worked with, friends, family members, that kind of thing. So it's people that you know mostly. And my perception of Facebook is that a lot of it is about people present their best life, or they uh, perhaps they don't, or perhaps they're kind of very honest about things that they're finding difficult in their life, which can be quite tricky sometimes. It's a source of support for people, I guess. Um, so it can be a bit of a comparison trap. Facebook, I think. Twitter for me. So Twitter for me is quite medical. Follow quite a lot of medical related accounts. It's a real kind of mixed bag of stuff that's changed quite a lot over the years. But Twitter for me, especially at the moment, is quite negative because of everything that's going on in the health services in this country. It's a lot about mentally sucked into. I'm not a big one for conflict generally. So actually, I've found my kind of haven for viewing a bit of social media on Instagram. So I follow a mixture of stuff to do with health and fitness mostly. Some stuff about mindset and coaching. So I don't get drawn into the city after I go to the park and ride. There's the dog in the background as always. Um, and it was a Mark Manson thing that got me thinking about self awareness. He posted a short clip about the importance of self awareness. And he's doing a lot of publicity at the moment because there's a film that they've made which I'm looking forward to, and I quite like his no nonsense approach to kind of mindset management and stuff, and it resonates with me because I'm quite no nonsense myself, maybe not quite to the same extent as Mark Manson. He's a bit swearier than I am when it comes to it, but that's all good. Each to their own. So yeah, he was talking about self awareness, and it did get me thinking about it. And I'm not, as far as I'm aware from watching his video, I'm not parroting his views on it. It just got me thinking about my own thoughts on self awareness. There we go, thinking about thinking and getting my own experiences of self awareness. And I think it can be very very easy if you don't lift your awareness of how you're thinking. You're just really kind of navigating without a map to some degree. And that's in retrospect, it's difficult in retrospect to kind of look back, but I think about prior to kind of raising my awareness of myself, from just devoting some time to thinking about it, I really was just at the mercy of how I felt on any particular day. So, I couldn't explain to you why on some particular days I was, some days at work, those days where you go into work and you're just on fire. Like, you are doing your job so well, everything feels so easy. If only things going according to plan. It feels like everyone you speak to is not happy with you, and then you have those days kind of in between times where some things are easy, some things are hard. Those are probably the bulk of the sort of middle part of that spectrum. And then also to sort of translate that to how you're feeling as well. There's some days where you just don't feel right at all for no particular reason. You feel really negative. You feel maybe a bit grumpy. And I think that can be quite as I kind of lifted my awareness a little bit, and a lot of that came through, when I was coached, and then when I started training as a coach, you kind of have to dig into all that kind of stuff a little bit and understand what's going on in your head, so how you're feeling is that kind of as well a lot of the time. So as I kind of tuned into what was going on inside my head, I realized that on some of these days where I was feeling particularly negative or I was ruminating on things for no particular reason, it could be like far historical things in the past, like something very minor that happened in the past, maybe the way I spoke to someone or the way I behaved around someone, that, maybe, I wouldn't necessarily choose to do these days. But again, nothing major. But actually, I'm feeling the way I was feeling in the aftermath of that, like many years later. So your thoughts are really, really powerful. And what I hadn't quite realized is that actually it's because on a plate, and I'm having that as a meal essentially, and I'm allowing myself to be influenced by that. So actually raising my awareness of what it was I was actually thinking about allowed me to then the better I'm behaving, the better I'm thinking, the better I'm feeling, the better I'm behaving, if you know what I mean. And then those um, sort of more negative thoughts or whatever will be injected from time to time because that's what our brain does, because that's what we've been doing for many years, on repeat. But then, if we can kind of recognize that, manage it and deal with it, then we can just get that cycle back on track again. And the more we do that, the better we get at it as well. And I think it's it can be quite tricky to do because if you're anything like me, I used to just distract myself non-stop with things. My brain just needed to be consuming things all the time. And what was a really big help for me was actually having periods where I just allowed myself to think things. So I did another video recently about, sometimes you have to feel things, sometimes you have to think things as well, and just allow those things to happen. So that there's times in my day-to-day life where, I'm kind of cognitively disconnected a little bit, where my mind's just kind of floating a little bit. So, driving a little bit. Obviously, I've been driving for many years, so that's quite an automatic skill for me. So I tend to have a lot of automatic thoughts when I'm doing that. In the shower, maybe out walking the dog or something like that. Even just like driving the car down to the shops, which is like a 5 minute drive. I used to fill all of that time with listening to a podcast or something along those lines. And what was a really big help for me was actually just disconnecting from that a little bit. Not listening to anything at all, turning the radio off, allowing myself to experience those thoughts so that I could kind of tap into what I'm thinking, so that I can then, manage that a little bit. Well, why am I thinking about that? Do I need to think about that? Is it helpful? How is it serving me? So I can kind of it's like piles of paperwork on your desk. Your mind is the desk and the paperwork is the thoughts. So you get to then just kind of file those away or have some kind of mental system where you can kind of manage that. And of course, as I always say, if it's something kind of majorly traumatic from your past that you're dealing with, it might be that you need to try and find the courage to speak to someone, in a professional capacity to help you manage that a little bit. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on self awareness. Mark Manson got me thinking yesterday. So have a little thinking about thinking. You know, to what degree are you tuned into the reason why you're feeling? Do you need to disconnect a little bit to give your brain time to show you what it's thinking, so you can then learn how to manage it? And just remember that the more you can manage that cycle, the better. So the better you're thinking, the better you're feeling, the better you will then be thinking, and just learning to manage those maybe more negative thoughts as they come in. So that's my thoughts on self awareness. Let me know what you think. Let me know whether you're tuned into your thoughts and how you manage them. And I will catch up with you soon.